What's up, everyone? Guy here with Total Geek Talks, and we have another episode today for you. With us, as always, is Kaiser, and Danny, and Baltimore. And today we're introducing two talented longtime friends of ours. We've had adventures with them everywhere from Midway to Deep Ellum to the Grand Canyon. I'd like to introduce from Marquis of Vaudeville, Toby, Lawhon, and Geneva Arena.
Hi.
Yay!
Hello, everyone.
Yay!
Welcome.
Welcome. So, guys, if you want to, tell us a little bit about Marquis of Vaudeville. For those of the people who have been living in a cave and don't know who you are, what a crime!
Well, it's a kids band. No,
Okay. Wheels on the bus, generally.
we perform a lot at Chuck E. Cheese, and at we're an alternative rock band. We've been around since 2009. That's when we formed. We performed a lot of pop culture conventions, from Dragon Con to Wizard World Con, you name it. We have music in TV and film. Some of the more prominent shows would be like Dexter, and we have songs in Charmed and even Melrose Place. The new 90210. I didn't realize there was a new 90210, but yeah.
Well, it's over, so it's okay.
You haven't studied.
90210?
Yeah, 0.2.
Well, they added the 4-digit suffix.
Yeah, you had to do the hyphen and then those new ones there. Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh.
I think, how long have you been with us?
4 years.
She's been with us 4 years, and so we're almost at next year. Will be 10 years that we've been a band. So.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It's hard to believe it's been that long, but yeah, I remember first seeing one of your shows when I was working at South Peak, and I could more readily catch you down at Deep Ellum when you had performed.
Yeah, I remember you came. John, did you come to the original Clockwork Wonderland? I can't remember.
I believe I was there.
Yeah.
Everybody was holding sunflowers, and
Oh yeah, that was a crazy night.
a great show.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we had in between 900 to 1,000 people at that show.
Wow.
So,
What was the venue?
it was at Curtain Club.
Oh, okay.
We it's a long story, but we were expecting about maybe 350 to 450 people. So imagine our surprise when the line was around the block for like 3 to 5 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and it just went all the way around the block, and people were trying to get in there, and a lot of people snuck in, but because the line was so long and the wait was so long to get in, but it was shoulder to shoulder all night long.
Yeah, I can
Fun night.
imagine, because Curtain Club's not that big of a club.
No.
No, and what we did was we utilized the upstairs and the downstairs of Curtain Club,
Mm-hmm.
and the owner also owns the club next door, which is the Liquid Lounge, and it has upstairs and downstairs. So we
right.
utilized both venues, upstairs and downstairs.
Wow.
So that's how we did everyone. Yeah.
Oh.
That's
Well,
wow.
We're going to start asking you a couple questions, and I'm going to go first. And I'm starting with a personal one. Ooh, exciting.
Ooh.
Expose. We get the hard-hitting ones starting out with. So your whole family's been involved in musical projects. Was that always the case? And how did everyone become interested in playing music?
Okay, so good question. My father sang in bands when he was a teenager, and he played a little bit of guitar, but I think he was in a band called like Paleocristic Bananas or something like that.
Awesome.
Type thing, and one called Question Mark Incorporated or something like, I can't remember the names, but he didn't play when I was born and growing up. He didn't play an instrument at all.
Mm-hmm.
There was really no music in the family whatsoever, in our immediate family. And I started playing guitar around the age 21, I guess, and from there, not long after that, I mean, within a few years, I was doing I was playing with Stars Agora with Derek Taylor from back home and Brian Getty, and Jason Dahmer was the drummer. He was from Dallas, and we were doing a showcase for Geffen Records within 2 to 3 years of me playing guitar. So I had never been in a band before. This is my first band, and immediately upon getting in a band and with several years of beginning guitar, we were already doing a showcase for Geffen, which was kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
I was just like, first band, deal with Geffen. So we got like a development deal with Geffen. And so based on that, I think my little brother, Colt, who's about 6 years younger, I think he started playing bass. And now he plays bass professionally in a lot of different bands, but currently with a Texas country band. And I think it was at that point, like nieces and nephews started getting into music, and then my dad just I think he was 56, if my memory serves me correctly. He decided to write a song. It was his first song he had ever attempted to write, and so he started playing guitar, and and I think now, since then, I think he's released like 3 or 4 albums.
Oh wow!
He gets played. He gets played all over the world. Like stuff gets played in Germany and Australia, and it's kind of an old school Texas swing style country. But yeah, so it was kind of backwards because it's usually the father or mother plays, and then the kid. But it was completely backwards to how. But a funny story about my dad writing that song. He submitted that first song he wrote to a Nashville music contest, like a songwriting contest.
Mm-hmm.
And then upon doing that, someone called him not long after that and said, "Hey, your song's on the radio." My dad hadn't recorded it. And what are you talking about? So he turns on the radio, and there's this song that George Strait is singing that is very similar to his song. So he calls me up, and he's like, "Hey, George Strait stole my song." I was like, "Yeah, George Strait didn't steal your song. What are you talking about?" And he said, "Come over here." And so I went over there, and he had the lyrics to George Strait's new hit song laying there, and the lyrics to the song he had written like a year or two before laying there, and they were almost identical. So what happened is the guys that were judges for that contest were also songwriters in Nashville, and they just took the idea and just said, "Oh, well, this is a great idea. We'll change the music up, and we'll give it to George." And that's what they did. And tried to find lawyers to chase it down. He talked to several lawyers, but it was just ultimately they said, "Well, they changed the music." Yeah, they obviously stole the idea. My dad in the first verse mentioned 5 specific Texas things. George Strait mentioned the same exact 5 things, and every verse was like that.
Wow.
And if my dad said, if it weren't for Texas, there'd be no Lone Star shining bright. For instance, they would say, if it weren't for Texas, there'd be no Lone Star shining at night. That close.
Wow.
So, yeah. So now our family, almost everyone plays music. So it's kind of crazy that from just starting out playing guitar when you're 21 to like your entire family being in music now, and doing it professionally. Most, my niece London is a great singer and up and coming star as well. So pretty cool.
Yeah, because it's not too crazy for family members to all be kind of musically inclined and just around the holidays sit around and sing songs and stuff, but to all then just
Never did
pursue it professionally.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we never did that. No one ever sat around and played music. I guess I would be the first. Like maybe at Christmas, I'd sit there with a guitar and just pluck away on something. But it was pretty crazy the way it happened. It was a little backwards, as I said.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I guess since we're going down the line, since Guy's there, then it's me, Kaiser, and Baltimore, I'll take the next question. I've been to a couple of your concerts and saw you at A-Kon, which is a big anime convention here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and such. And I noticed you guys have a lot of fans that like to dress up in steampunk, and some of your costumes also have that feel as well. How did that come about?
I don't want to monopolize all the
Yeah, but
time
I mean,
here,
that's
but,
a you question.
yeah. Well, it was just in the way that we dressed, which was somewhat neo-Victorian, I suppose. And I believe it was also in the style of music, just in the sound itself. There's something, even though it's modern alternative rock, there's something about that. There are elements of the old world in the music, and I think that's what steampunk. The people that are into steampunk, that's what drew them to the music. It was, if you think about it, it's the epitome of steampunk. It's like modern or futuristic with these elements of the old world just kind of combined, and so it just made sense. And I've been familiar with steampunk since I guess the 80s. What was it Walden Books that we had in the mall?
Walden Books,
Yeah, it was Walden Books.
And I remember going in there, if you guys remember in Corsicana, going in that bookstore and looking at all the RPG games, and they had steampunk RPG games back then, and that was my first introduction to steampunk. Was in Walden Books and looking through all the role-playing games. They also had like cyberpunk games. They had all sorts of different role-playing games. But that was my introduction to steampunk, and I suppose just my sense of style. That some of the other guys already dressed the same or similarly, so we decided this is how we're going to dress, and then thought about, all right, well, what do we want to name ourselves? And the name also pretty much kind of it exudes some sort of a steampunk element as well. Marquis of Vaudeville or Marquis of Vaudeville. Everyone says it differently. We don't know.
But how do you say it?
We just say Marquis of Vaudeville, plural.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
But mostly people say Marquis of Vaudeville. We've heard the Marquis de Vaudevilles. We get announced differently every time. It doesn't bother us. It's kind of, it's a cool thing because it's intriguing. Like that people are like, well, they don't exactly know the name, but they know who we are. So
yeah.
But so I think steampunk's really found us, even though I was aware of it and I liked it and enjoyed it. And then our shows, we noticed that the steampunk community was really embracing what we do, so we started putting some of those elements in our shows. And our first A Clockwork Wonderland was the first big like steampunk. It was a mini convention, is what it was, and so that was the very first one in Texas, and especially the one that's that successful. They really had, and I mean, we had people coming from Louisiana and from surrounding states, and we didn't realize that it had grown that big and that the word had gotten out as it did. And so that night, John was there. It was just a phenomenal night. We just had no idea that many people were going to show up. So that's kind of how we got into it. And I mean, and we we have a huge steampunk fan base, and in the South, we're the most prominent band that plays within the steampunk scene.
Right.
So, they embraced us, and we embraced them back. If someone looks at us or hears the music and says that's steampunk, who are we to say it is or isn't to them? Or, we don't like to spoon feed anyone.
Mhm.
We just allow anyone who listens to get whatever it is they need out of the music, and whatever they need us to be, we'll be that for them. If they think we're goth band, we'll be a goth band. If they see us as steampunk, we're steampunk. Because all those elements are in the music. So
Right.
it makes sense.
Yeah, they're all kind of factions of kind of the same essence, so to speak.
Well, yeah, it's all alternative subcultures.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what we are. That's what we are part of. So,
Mhm.
fit right in. So, yeah, I don't think, we some people see us as rock. Some people see us as alternative. Some people see us as steampunk. Some people see us as goth.
Mhm.
And that's fine. Those are all fine by us. As long as they're listening, as long as they're getting something out of it, I'm not going to tell them we're one thing. It's up to the listener to interpret it however they want to interpret it.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't want to say, no, we're this, no, we're that.
Right. Well, guys, if you don't mind, I'll take the next question because I kind of want to segue that into, well, Geneva, you weren't part of the original band. So when you first heard, how did you first hear of them and what drew you to then joining?
And this is a great question and a great story.
Do I have to watch my language on this? Or
Nope.
If
So
we
I
have to bleep, we'll bleep, but you're fine.
okay.
It's all good.
So I used to live in Wichita, Kansas, and I was in a band in Wichita called Barrel Bright, and it was just like a rock band. And we did a show in Oklahoma with this band, like in 2009, called Faction, and they were a rock band as well. And it was a terrible show. It was out like in the middle of nowhere, and it was at the end of October, and it was at the end of November, and it was freezing, and it was this outdoor festival thing that was a complete disaster.
Ooh.
For the people who put it on. He had all these bands come out, and like hardly anyone came, and it was just a wash. It was a terrible show. But the lead singer from this band, Faction, his name was Aaron Posey, and the people in my band and him, we became friends. And a few years after that, he started a new band called Admiral Gray, and he had moved to Oklahoma City. And he was like, "Hey, would you want to fill in on bass for me sometime?" And Oklahoma City is only like 2 hours away from Wichita. And I was like, "Sure." So Barrel Bright and Admiral Gray did a lot of shows together, and he said I'd be filling in, but like it was really like, "Oh no, you're in the band." I was like, "Oh, okay." And that's just how he is. It's like, "Oh, we're doing this. Oh no, it's actually this now." But not in like an assholey way or anything.
No,
he's just kind of like very easygoing. It's like, "Yeah, we're gonna be doing this," and
he's a great guy.
yeah, he's awesome. So and then it kind of turned into being a band centered out of Dallas instead of Oklahoma City, which was kind of the original plan. Oh, we're going to be centered out of Oklahoma City and blah, blah, blah. And then it just kind of turned into Dallas. And so I'm 5 hours away from Dallas. So it was kind of this big thing. So like whenever we'd have rehearsal or a show, I'd drive to Oklahoma City and then ride with Aaron down to Dallas because our drummer lived here. And so that's what my life was becoming, just like being in Dallas and being in a band in Wichita. And then I also worked full time. And so it was like this big, crazy thing. And Admiral Gray, Aaron's band, was a rock band as well. And so fast forward a few years, we do a show at the Curtain Club, and we're loading in, and we're bringing all of our gear in. It's like 5 in the afternoon, and these guys are like already on stage, and they're like putting flowers and vines up, and they're all wearing these suits, and I'm like, oh my God, who are these assholes? Like,
assholes.
Exactly. I was just like, I'm gonna have to sit through these assholes before I can go home tonight, basically, because in my experience, 99.9% of the time when you run into a band who like puts that much effort and care into how they look and how they dress, almost always they're just garbage.
Right.
Like it's just garbage music, garbage talent. Like And so that was my initial impression was, oh my God, I'm just gonna have to, not like I'm gonna have to be subjected to sitting through this, like basically, which is my opinion. And so I was so upset. And so they did, and they were headlining obviously. So they did their sound check, and they started their sound check, and like we're still bringing our shit in and everything. They started their sound check, and my jaw dropped to the floor. I was just like, oh my God, like they're so good, like completely 180 in my opinion. And then later on when they performed, like they were even better. I was just like, oh my God, I wish I could be in a band like this, because I was just digging all of it, like because it was good. I thought it was gonna be shitty, and it wasn't.
She got her wish.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my God, I wish I could be in a band like this. Like, this is my bag. Like, I want this to be my bag, basically. So, and it was a great show overall. It was us. It was Marquis of Vaudeville. It was this band called The Orange, which was really good. Or they were good that night. I haven't seen them very often, but so it was a great night. It was a great show. Everyone had a good time, and next day we go home. Blah blah blah. A couple years later, Marquis of Vaudeville comes to Wichita to do a show, and I didn't find out until like earlier that day. Oh no. Later that year, my band brought them up to do a Halloween show with them, and it was awesome. It was great. And then a couple years later, you guys came to town again to do a show, and I didn't find out till like that day, and so I went and saw them, and it was awesome, and like they played some new songs. I was just like, oh my God, this is so awesome! Like I love this band. And then the next day, you and Brian sent me a message going, hey, would you want to maybe fill in from time to time? And I was just like, let me think. Yes. I guess they had been having problems with your current bassist.
Yeah, I mean,
as far as, just like scheduling and stuff. I was like, yeah, I mean, I think I'm like good enough to play with you guys. I'd love to fill in from time to time. That'd be awesome. And then, like a year later,
we made you,
it was just like, yeah, and then like nothing happened.
We made you sweat it out for a year.
Right.
Wow.
Later, it's like,
And
hey,
she was already packed and everything, and
I was still in 2 other bands, So like a year later, they contacted me again. They're like, hey, would you maybe want to start learning some of these songs, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah. And then my bands broke up as I was learning the songs. And so a couple months later, I was like, hey, if you guys like what I do and everything, and you maybe want me to do more than fill in, I might be able to do that because my band just broke up. And they're like, oh, okay. And then I tried out, and when I tried out, I recorded myself playing the songs at my friend's studio, and then I emailed them to him because we were like 5 hours away from each other. And so I sent those, and I was just like, oh my God, I don't know if I did good or not. And then they called me, and they're like, no, this was great. Like, you played it great. I was just like, really? Because I thought I was terrible. And so they liked me, and then, a couple months later, I played my first show with them, and then about 6 months after that, I moved down here because I didn't really have anything up there keeping me up there. And I was driving down here 2, sometimes 3 times a month for rehearsals and shows. And I had 2 jobs up in Wichita, and I don't even know how I was like functioning at all. And after I moved down here, I was like, I don't even want to drive down the street anymore. Forever. And that was 4 years ago. And best band I've ever been in my opinion, and I love it. And it's all my energy goes into it.
Now knowing what you know and all the hard work we put into everything we do, who was the asshole?
It's absolutely right. Absolutely true.
So I've done some TV and film work and created a show, and I found music to put into it and created it to make sense for the storyline and the narrative and everything. I would like to hear about how you got your music onto 90210 Melrose Plays, especially Charmed, because I'm a huge fan of that. So I want to know the episode so I can go listen to it. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So we found various licensing firms. What they do is they're like a grocery store, and the music supervisors who find the music and place the music into the shows or film or whatever. They basically go to these online grocery stores. They just go through different songs. They have them broken up by genre, and then they or as someone we know in the distant past called it, genres. I'm not naming any names, but
genres.
These guys know exactly who I'm talking about.
Uh-huh. Yes, we do.
Like the 90210 her.
Oh man.
No, that's going to turn into a face.
Yeah. We have
Get humanity back.
We have to put a lid on that for now. So basically, they browse and they can surf and look by mood. So if they're like, I want something that's really chill, and they have just these descriptors there, and it's like, okay, well, then you go through and they just sift through music.
Or I want something this tempo, or
something upbeat, and so
it's categorized into these different things.
Right, and so basically we found all non-exclusive licensing firms that we could work with, because if you go with an exclusive firm, your music is only with them, and if they place you, great. If they don't, you're locked in with those guys. So started out with all non-exclusive. And I think it's Music Dealers is the name of the firm that has gotten us the most placements. So there are multiple licensing deals you can get. The one we got with Charmed is so our music was written well after Charm was already created.
Right.
So what happened is the music that they placed at the time of the show's creation, they lost their licensing for that music because
I was wondering
a limited license. Yeah.
Oh.
A certain amount of years, I suppose. And so when they had to replace music into the show, that show had syndicated reruns on like 3 different channels.
Yep.
It's all over the place. So basically they went through and they found music to place in the show, and that's how we were placed in it. My apologies. We're in 2 or 3 different episodes, and I cannot remember for the life of me which episodes we're in. Dexter.
Watch them all.
Right?
That's on IMDb.
Yeah,
we have our own IMDb that has all that listed.
Cool. I'll go check it out.
But Dexter was different. Dexter was a show being created, and so we were getting in on the show from the ground up. So that one, it's interesting the placement of the song, because the song is about imagination, and it's a song somewhat about Willy Wonka and called Kismet, and it's about fate and destiny and imagination. And so I don't know how they placed this or who heard the song and said, this will be perfect for our strip club scene, also a fight scene, and a did you fuck my girl scene, all wrapped up into one. That's what the scene was. Yeah. And so they had this rock song of ours playing during this weird scene, and it somehow it worked. I mean, the guy saw something or heard something in the song that I would have never in a million years gone, let's place that here.
So your music basically touches all genres.
Oh yeah, all of the genres. It's most of our placements have been through Music Dealers. They're a great company. And 90210, it's the same thing. They just go and they shop, and then they're like, we need a song for this scene, and they'll hear it and they'll place it. One of our recent ones that we were really excited about was Trust Me.
Yeah.
It's a film called Trust Me. It's a good film.
What's the actor's name? He's been in the Marvel movies. He played Agent Coulson.
Oh, yeah.
Clark Gregg.
Clark. Yeah, Clark Gregg.
Clark, he wrote and directed it, I think.
Yeah.
So it was his movie. Like William H. Macy's in it.
Sam Rockwell.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell. A whole bunch of people are in it. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
And we thought we had our song placed for the trailer for it, which we were excited about, and then we never heard it. Right?
Yeah, we thought it was the trailer,
yeah,
but
and then,
it was in the film itself.
And this was like when I first got in the band. He's like, "Hey, this just happened." I'm just like, "No way! I love those actors." And
Nice.
exciting, like this is the band I'm joining. And then we never heard anything about it, and I never I looked up the trailer several months later, and our song was in the trailer. I'm just like, oh, I guess it didn't work out. And then when the movie came out, I rented it, and our song is in the movie, probably in the middle of the movie, in a very important scene. And I was just like, this is awesome.
Probably one of the most important scenes of the film, if not. However, once again, it was in a very odd place.
Odd placement.
It was the scene. It was it was Corp Night, right?
Yeah.
So it's this rock anthem, and it was in a scene that was, I guess, hinting at abuse, and so with a teenager crying on a bed, and I was just like, oh my god, this.
I mean, it's a good movie.
It's a great movie if you haven't seen it. It's called Trust Me.
Oh man.
Cool, that's awesome. Congratulations on all of those.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much.
So one of the reasons that I initially reached out to you for this talks was you had shared with me "We're All Mad Here," and you showed me the video, and I was just really taken by it. I thought it was just beautiful. So outside of the obvious, of course, being based off what it is, what was the inspiration for that? Why did you choose that creative direction? And just tell us a little bit more about the video in general, please.
It started with, thank you, first of all. It started with the event that we created, but the event goes back to the creation of the band. Because when we started the band, we decided, okay, this is the kind of music. We'd already written some music, and it was like, this is the style. This is how we're going to look. So what name are we going to take on? So when I came up with Marquis of Vaudeville, and we all went, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Said, all right, guys, look, if we name the band this, everything we do has to be equal to this name or greater than this name. Mm-hmm. We can't get on stage in jeans and a T-shirt with Marquis of Vaudeville as the name.
Right.
It just wouldn't make sense. So if we take on this grandiose sounding name, everything has to be grandiose. So we decided at that point, all right, we didn't want to put on the average show. So what we wanted to do was create an experience for the listeners and for our fans. And so started doing that. Each show that we put on locally was a big blown out, themed event. So the first one we did, I think was called, it was the same name as the first album, The Great Promenade of Fools and Ghosts. Mm-hmm. And then I think we did one around Halloween called the Off With Their Heads Ball. The first show we ever played, there were 250 people there for our show, which for our first show is amazing.
Yeah.
Still a good number.
Yeah, if you're just a regular, yeah.
That's still a good number. At a bar,
So then we did, second show we did, it was 350. So each show we noticed was working. People start dressing up. And so I dreamt up this event because I'm such a huge fan of Alice in Wonderland and Lewis Carroll. So called A Clockwork Wonderland. And this was the first event that we decided we're going to put some steampunk elements into the actual show itself. So this was the one at Curtain Club where we decorated the entire venue, both upstairs and downstairs of both venues, actually. Mm. And when you walked in, we built the rabbit hole. We created another world for all the attendees to go to and be immersed within. So that was where the video actually came out of that original show that we did called A Clockwork Wonderland. The Mad Hatter that we had, because we had actors portraying characters. And our this was our version of Alice in Wonderland. So it was darker, and yeah, it was before Burton's version came out. It was a darker, more twisted version of Wonderland, and so.
Oh, this is like Tim Burton's. It's like, no, actually, this was like before that movie came out.
But you know, I mean, it's a cycle because I was highly influenced by Tim Burton's work. So I mean, Nightmare Before Christmas, Edward Scissorhands, as I'm sure all of us here are fans of all of these. But it was one of those things where we were doing. So we decided to do another Clockwork Wonderland. And what year was it? 2016. So the original Clockwork Wonderland was in 2011, and so we waited like 5 or so years, and then we're like, why don't we do another Clockwork Wonderland? So it was such a huge hit, and people remember it. And you know, in between there, we did one called Gadgets and Gobstoppers: The Twisted World of Wonka. We do you know, various shows of things that influenced the band. I'd like to do a Labyrinth one. But you know, in California, there's the Labyrinth Masquerade, so it's kind of like something. But I decided we were going to play at Acon, and I decided, well, why don't we create our Wonderland at Acon? And Danny, I think you came to that?
Yeah. Okay.
And so we started talking with Acon about doing it, and that event was a year in the making. Lot of, because we found out from Acon we were only going to have 3 hours to set up. 3 hours to create another world. We had 3 hours. When we did the original one, we got there at 7 in the morning and worked all day long, to create. And we had it all planned out, and we had a team of workforce about 30 plus people doing that. And so this one, we would have people that weren't already in the know. We were going to have con volunteers that were going to be helping.
Right.
So it was like, okay, we've got to make these people understand, and we've got to build this entire Wonderland inside this event hall within 3 hours.
Jeez.
So,
and it was at it was in the ballroom at the Hilton, so we couldn't have anything attached to anything. It all had to be, when we engineered it, it had to all be freestanding and easy to set up and tear down, and because we couldn't
attach to the walls, we couldn't drape any,
risk anything happening to anything, basically.
So we,
stressful.
Yeah, it's very stressful. So we did it. We pulled it off, and in putting that together, we did a promo video. We typically, for these big events, will create a promo video, and a lot of times they tell a little story here and there. So just to give people an idea of what they're going to experience and what the theme is of the event. We did one for the original Clockwork Wonderland, and that was a major factor in the success of that event. That video went everywhere.
That was the black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the black and white. And so we did that at the Texas Discovery Gardens. Well, the new one, we decided we're going to go with a different Alice, and we're going to have a different look. And so we went to Kansas, and she still living in Kansas at that time, or were you not?
No. I'd already. But my sister was still living there, which is who played Alice, and I had done some short films and stuff when I was still living in Wichita, and so all the people I knew who I did that stuff with were up there. So I was like, hey, I know these two guys; they can help us film this, and because I never filmed anything before, I always written, produced, and directed stuff, So I had some friends up there who were going to help us shoot some of these things for this promo video. And so we how many locations did we do in Wichita? We did some of it at my sister's house. We set up some stuff in my sister's house, shot some stuff there. We did some stuff at a park up there. They had a nice park with like vines and stuff that we shot some stuff in. And I think that was it for the promo video. that together and used it for the event, and it looked really good.
Yeah, it was this beautiful footage of her sister as Alice walking through the woods with like these giant playing cards stuck to all the trees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so so when we were talking about doing a video for the upcoming album, which the album is called The Tragic Valentine.
Oh, and so sorry. So that promo that we did, it was like, what, 50 seconds long?
Yeah.
We had a lot of footage that we took Dallas and stuff, and we're like, oh, we obviously can't use, even a tenth of this. That became a factor in what do we do first? Oh, we have all this footage that we couldn't use for the promo that, we have a song that's about Alice in Wonderland.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, that was going to be my point, is that it was like we already had this beautiful footage shot with the professional camera, and I said, well, we have this song that's called "We're All Mad Here." Why don't we take that footage and build around that footage?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we did. And so I started just kind of dreaming up ways to tell the original Alice in Wonderland story, but with our twist on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how it started rolling from there. She bought a camera.
What?
Someone have a question?
No, I said that was awesome. That's awesome to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so she got it. She got a camera, and then we just from there we started planning and piecing together how we wanted to do effects and that sort of thing. We wanted to do pretty much all practical effects. So I don't think there's anything that's not practical.
Right.
Yeah, everything's a practical effect in the video itself.
Mostly because I prefer the way those look, but also because I don't know how to do any digital effects.
Right.
Yeah.
We're
That's the
basically
thing.
doing it ourselves.
That's what-
I don't know enough to do that, or let alone make it look good. So we'll just do what we can practically. So, yeah.
Did I veer off? Because you know how I digress.
No, it all fit.
Original question.
Yeah, I don't remember.
What is your favorite color? Was the original question.
Oh,
My favorite color is 7.
Oh, excellent, excellent. All right.
I got just a real quick question. I know it's not my turn, but I just want to know who did the photo that was promoting the new album. It was like you're all in white and kind of floating, suspended with the table. It was like, who shot that? Because I love that photo.
yeah, a photographer named Dennis Gatz, and if you look,
Right.
if you look him up online, I think it's dennisgatz.com, Gatz. He does everything he does is incredible. And he'll do also these animated photos, which we didn't have him do. But if you want to go to his website and look, he's awesome. But we have a lot of people just send us emails going, hey, I'm a producer, or I have a record, or I have a recording studio, or I'm a photographer, or anything, just trying to drum up business, right? And most of the times we do all that ourselves. No, we're not going to pay you, But he was one of those ones that just emailed us out of the blue. It's like, hey, if you'd ever want to be, if you'd ever be interested in, setting a shoot up, I'm going to be in Dallas for this week or whatever. And we looked his stuff up, or we're just like, whoa, maybe we should, do something with this guy because he's awesome. And so, yeah, he just contacted us out of the blue. We did a shoot with him, and he's awesome. He's very lovely to work with, and we're very happy with what he did.
and it wasn't intended to be. It was just a photo shoot we were doing. It wasn't. We were like, we weren't saying, okay, well, let's do a photo shoot for the album.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It just kind of tied in.
Yeah. How it went? Okay, I dreamt up the idea for the hourglass that's on the cover of the album, which is the Annie's got. It's the heart that's bleeding into the skull, or if you turn it over, the skull that's turning to a heart. So I think
Publicity.
yeah, I think the back shows the it's like it's all a so it's all this idea about light and dark, good and evil. It just was one of those things where we did the photo shoot, and then I was like, well, if we had these colors that tied in with that white, because we knew we wanted to be stark white with the hourglass, because it's just so impactful. So So we didn't wear all white. The guy, Dennis, actually digitally changed everything to make it.
Oh,
What?
Yeah.
awesome.
I don't think I own any white.
Oh,
Yeah, Geneva doesn't own anything white.
that could be a thing.
So he did that, and we told him, "Hey, are you able to kind of go with this theme? This is going to be our album cover, and if this image, if you can make it the color scheme fit with this, and we like it to be on the album itself." And he's sure, and he did it. He's amazing. I mean,
yeah.
Awesome.
we
That's
weren't
why I
all
brought it
around
up.
those are all individual shots. There was not. I think we had a little card table that was like a crappy card table, like you'd expect, like your grandpa to play dominoes on.
Uh-huh.
You know, it was.
Yeah, he took individuals of every one of us. That table in the photo doesn't
exist.
Wow.
The chair.
Yeah.
The chair is our chair. He took a photo of our chair, and there's a clock down on the bottom right-hand corner.
The chair?
Yeah, that's not my magic chair that I use on stage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bigger throne that we own. It was the Queen's the Queen of Hearts throne at the Clockwork Wonderland.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
okay.
that same chair.
Oh, and then the gramophone. He took a photo of the gramophone, and then he just created that whole photo.
Yeah, it was all.
Wow.
We went to this dark little studio in front of a gray background, and he's like, "All right, I have all I need," and we're like, "Okay." And then he comes up with that.
He's a
wow.
wizard.
Yeah,
Yes,
he is a wizard, a digital wizard.
Very nice.
Well, we're talking about this
Freak
album. And you guys had a nice CD release launch, whatever you want to call it, party on Friday the 13th that I got to go to. It was a lot of fun. And seeing a lot of the people, I mean, there was so much involvement with the audience. There's so many great costumes. Do you guys recall any of, like, some of your favorites?
It's difficult to pick one out of the crowd because everyone looks so beautiful at our shows. But I will say that my favorite was actually the girl who dressed up as Tragedy, which is one of the characters from the story on the album. The album is a tragic love story told through 13 songs, and one of the characters within this story, it's akin to Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, Fate is a character in our story, and Father Time is a character in our story, and tragedy and comedy are characters in the story. And so we have we're working on potentially putting together a comic book that tells the entire story. I think I've talked to you in the past about that, Danny.
Yeah. I'm excited about that.
And as I told you, each song on the album is it stands alone and tells its own story, but then it has a dual meaning, and we wrote this intentionally wrote it this way, so it has a dual meaning, and it fits within this overall larger story, which is the tragic love story. It's somewhat our own Romeo and Juliet, and so each song has two different meanings, and Tragedy was one of the characters in the story, and so and we have some artwork with Tragedy. We have I wish I had something to show you, but we have a shirt that has Tragedy on it, and so a girl dressed up as Tragedy, and it looked amazing. Like she was exactly what I envisioned Tragedy looking like.
Wow.
And so
That's really, really cool.
So
it's got to be surreal having someone dressing
seeing what's in here right in front of you in physical form. I mean, that's.
And one of our friends, Shay, originally designed the character for Tragedy, and then our friend David Antunes, he's the Mad Hatter. He's always our Mad Hatter. He actually is the one who drew the version on the shirt.
Okay.
So.
Cool.
So everyone that we work with, they all bring something to the table. And that's, I feel, why our video, to go back to that, why it worked out so well, is that it was all fans and friends that are very talented. Pretty much everyone made their own costumes because a lot of them are cosplayers. And so, you know, a lot of the characters in the video were actual characters that we have at our live shows. So the Clockwork Wonderland you went to, Danny, at Acon, Cheshire Cat, it was the same Cheshire Cat. Caterpillar is the same Caterpillar that we had at Clockwork Wonderland. So
yeah, so many talented people.
I was just so happy and I saw that.
Oh yeah, our Caterpillar, he's a great guy. You're like, well, everybody.
Probably one of the most enthusiastic, happy people I've ever met.
Nice. That's very, very cool.
So I think, Kenny, did I answer your question after all that?
Yeah. You got it. Yeah. We settled on tragedy. There was another one I liked just because I'm always fascinated with people on stilts, and I just was. He came in, walking in, and he was like 10 feet tall, and I'm like, dude, how long are you gonna be here? I was surprised he lasted a lot longer than I would have, but his costume was phenomenal, and I'm a sucker for stilts. I want to learn how to walk on them. I'm always envious of people who can and incorporate that into cosplay. That's like one of my big goals. For sure.
So this specific gentleman that you're referring to, I asked him to be at this event. I told him, hey, come, because he dresses like that all over the place. Hi, Blitz. And so I was like, hey, come to the show. It fits. It's an Unlucky 13 show. And I told him I would put him in the promo, and you know, hey, what name do you go by when you're dressed up and you're on your stilts and everything? Because I'll put you in the promo. And he's just like, oh, Satan.
Sure, why not?
Well,
Satan Melner.
He was Satan on stilts, so it kind of, yeah.
But it was just
because we'll list all the performers on the poster, and
that's funny.
Well, and it was
to be there. Oh, yay!
It was such a fun, interactive experience. Coming through outside, you guys had ladders set up, and so we could walk under the ladder as we're waiting in line to get into the venue, and it was at church, the church.
Church, yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's otherwise known as Lizard Lounge or something.
Yeah,
but on Sundays it's the church.
Yeah.
And great venue. You guys had so many fun interactive things. The breaking of the mirror, for the 7 years of bad luck, and I had just so much fun with that experience, and just everybody that was involved in it. They were so nice. And it was just a great atmosphere, I think, that night. I think you pulled off a wonderful, wonderful show. A lot of great acts. I was blown away by that.
Pretty Dodger.
Yes! That guy.
I know, wasn't he awesome?
I think you guys were telling me that he had just moved from Louisiana and into the area, and I mean, he's just such a great performer, and I love the music that he chose and everything. It was so much fun.
So with that event, it was called Unlucky 13, and the misfortune smiles on our kind is it's a lyric from one of the songs, and Unlucky 13 is also a mention in one of our songs called the Vaudevillain, and Vaudevillain intentional. We haven't had the person go, that's Vaudevillian. We haven't had
that guy.
But that's what our fans go by. They're called vaudevillains.
Right.
So basically, I had this idea for several years. I wanted to do an event on Friday the 13th, and I wanted it to be it's a place where you go and you just defy superstition, because the state of the world right now, it's in such a horrible state. I was like, what could it hurt Like let's try to get as much bad luck as we can possibly. And in my mind, it's like an old arcade. We're gonna flip it. Like we're just
cancels it out.
Yeah, that we flip it to good, and that was the entire idea behind Unlucky 13.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was where the ladders came in, and that's where when you got in, like we wanted people to break mirrors, and so we had the hammers where you could just break your own mirror, and that's where we had like the Alice in Wonderland's, like it was a potion bottle, and instead of drink me, it said spill me, and had the salt in it, and so
nice.
and all the Ouija boards, and you know, so it was just something that the rocking chairs, because you know, bad luck to rock a rocking chair, all the superstitions that you've heard, the wives' tales and things. We try to create as many as possible, and so for several years I wanted to do it, but we could never find a good date, a good Friday the 13th to make it happen. It never, because we travel a lot and we get booked for other shows. But this past year in 2017, Friday the 13th fell in October, and just before Halloween. I was like, that is when we do it.
That's the one.
So we just started planning and put it together, and we're going to do it again. I know, but I'm not sure. It has to be on Friday the 13th, and this year the only Friday the 13ths are in April, and that's too soon, and July. So I don't know. We might skip a year.
Maybe maybe for next year.
Gotcha.
The church did ask us to come back and do an event this year, so we're going to be putting something together, and I'm kind of thinking of maybe a dark fantasy, like just kind of a dark fairy tale type.
Okay, because I you know, I would just like a Sandman themed one eventually.
Yeah, you know, I've thought about doing just like a Burton event and doing like a Gaiman event. You know, those things are such an immense influence on the music and what we do.
Right.
You know, Burton and Gaiman and even like Tolkien and like the films Labyrinth, Legend, and you know, and Bowie, and so it's all, those are all immense influences on what we do, and so that's why you see those things shine through, and that's also why there's a cover of Bowie's "Within You" on the new album from Labyrinth, because it's such an influence. And then the song "The Dreaming," which is a Neil Gaiman themed song about Sandman.
Right.
Oh, excellent. Well, we're getting a little closer to the end of our interview time for today. Kaiser of Baltimore, do you have any last-minute questions?
You had mentioned The Dreaming. Wasn't that one of your Patreon exclusive videos? Or was it the other one you said? I remember seeing you had a couple of Patreon exclusive stuff pop up.
Yeah, and that was leading up to the album release. We had songs that you could only get on Patreon, and we would release one song a month. So for our fans on Patreon, they could, they get a lot of other perks as well, but they got the album before the rest of the world got the album. They got to see our video before the rest of the world.
Sure.
So they get everything first. And so that's why you were seeing like these exclusive Patreon posts, because for instance, I think we did not this past Halloween, but the Halloween prior. That was we did so Halloween in 2016. We did our song "Silence the Serenade." So you got that song, if you're on Patreon, you got that song a year in advance.
Wow!
Oh wow!
Wow!
So, yeah.
Have you found doing that and working through Patreon work for you and building, followers and attention for what you're doing? I mean, has it been pretty successful for you?
It's been, yes, it's definitely helped us, because the money we make from Patreon helped putting the video together, and so the video right now is, it's been seen like over 170,000 times. So every little thing that we do that helps the band endeavors, you know, it all adds up, and Patreon's been a pretty big factor in that, I'd say. But right now, video just being out there and just kind of going, and it's starting to kind of go viral, is really the main thing we're focusing on, is trying to get that out there as much as possible. It's already spreading like wildfire. We get, I don't know how many new followers every day now from it, and new views, and it's been pretty massive on social media. So
awesome.
Putting our focus right now.
Awesome. Baltimore, do you have any final questions?
No, I think that's it. I think yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to be wrapping up this TGL Talks. Before we go, a quick and easy story question for you, Toby. Do you have any personal favorite adventures from our days running around that you'd like to share?
Since we're wrapping up, do you remember when at Midway I wrapped you up like a mummy with all the toilet paper that was stocked in the...
I still have those pictures.
I remember.
Oh yeah, the pictures.
I still have pictures.
I remember. My thought was, well, I remember we opened that janitor closet that time, and it was just stocked full of toilet paper. I was like, why do they get so much toilet paper in advance? Like, I mean, this is like 10 years worth of toilet paper. And so I was like, we got plenty. And then I was like, I wonder if I could wrap Guy with enough toilet paper where he couldn't actually move. Like, if we could wrap him enough to where it was just so much. And so I remember as we were wrapping you up in the chair with the toilet paper, I started hearing, hurry. So I would start tearing a mouth hole so you could breathe. Do you remember?
There was so many rolls. It was ridiculous. Yeah. It actually took me a while to fight to get out of it. Toilet paper, of all things. It was like
industrial strength.
You bound me to the chair as well, I might add. Oh. Yeah, so.
Yeah, we wrapped him up to the chair. And so if we needed to, we could roll him around and show people.
our new mummy.
Look at our mummy we made.
We made this.
Yeah. That just is immediately upon you saying wrap things up, I thought about that. So.
Oh, yes. I'll have to share those pictures one day. Yeah. All right. On that personal note, thank you, Toby and Geneva, so much for coming out and sharing time with us, and we really appreciate it. And hopefully your fans will enjoy it as much as our fans do. And as always, thanks again, and it's all Geek Talks.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Guys. Thanks a lot.
All right.
And
misfortune smiles on our kind, but we don't pay, no, never mind the beating till we're bleeding. Nothing's as it seems, victims in dreams, and that's the way that this has to be. We're other schemes and fight for things that might go bump in the night.